So are we looking at Jim Sampier's screen?
Should be.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar about Financial Instant Card Issue. Before we get started, I did want to let you know that you will be muted during the program. This is to help us keep the audio clear as we are recording this broadcast. We do want to encourage questions and comments. You will see you have a question box on your webcast viewer. If you type in your questions, I will be monitoring those during the presentation. And at the end of the program, we will take up your questions one by one during a Q&A session. The webinar is set for an hour. We will stay until all the questions are answered. As you know, I upload these webinars to the FISPA website. So if you want to refer back to this or other members of your team view it, I should have it uploaded by tomorrow afternoon. We are not going to automatically send the slides today. If you'd like additional information or copy the slides, there'll be contact information on the final slide of the presentation. With that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Jim Sampier of Entrust Datacard.
BJ, thank you. I appreciate everything that your organization and yourself do for us, and setting up this webinar is one of those great examples. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're at. My name is Jim Sampier. I work for Entrust Datacard, and today, if you're sitting here thinking, boy, I need one more retail banking branch-based solution technology to add to my portfolio to deal with my end-user customers, I think you're in the right place. So today we want to talk to you about our Financial Instant Issue solution, and with our friends and partners at Lansworth, how you can get engaged in various options of delivering those solutions to your customer base. So the first thing we talk about a lot of times on our side is never leave your customer cardless. So we'll give you a little overview of just what is Financial Instant Issue. For those of you that aren't familiar with Financial Instant Issue, it is the ability for you to deliver a solution to your customer that allows to immediately deliver a fully vetted card with EMV data, personalization data, to an end user customer, and they walk out the branch, and that card is active and usable as we speak. So what I want to talk about today a little bit before turning it over to Tom and Lindsay Oden is 3 or 4 different things. What's that impact on the consumer? What's the impact on the banker, your customer? And what's the impact on you, the reseller? And then a little bit of why Entrust Datacard and why our solution and our portfolio should help differentiate you from the other competitors that are out there. So one of the things you'll see is that this solution immediately sold in the beginning of day as a customer experience benefit, member experience benefit solution. Most of the sales efforts were around how this would help the consumer, and there was very little talk about the business model associated with it. And we had significant success. A lot of the smaller institutions, be them banks and credit unions, accepted the solution and deployed it to differentiate themselves from the big players. As things progressed, big players such as PNC and even Chase deployed the solution in their branches too as a customer satisfaction solution. So think about that. In today's economy, where everybody wants instant now, what is the value to the consumer of having a card in his or her pocket? We've heard all over, and it seems like every other month we hear about some kind of a breach, and a replacement after a breach is a key solution for this. Myself personally, I wear my cards very aggressively. Broken cards, cracked cards, lost cards, stolen cards are obviously ways to get the card back in the cardholder's hand. This would work for both debit and credit-based solutions if your customer has those solutions in the bank. And I would say, I'll skip a little ahead into the solution part. We do have interfaces to many of the cores and the EFT switch relationships that you're used to dealing with in your other products, such as ATMs and teller cash recyclers. But there is another story to this. When it comes to your banker, what's in it for the banker? I've spent a lot of time, as many of you may know me, in the ATM space, and a lot of the sales motion is around cost optimization. Certainly deposit automation was that way. There wasn't a person who sold ATMs and deposit automation that didn't talk about the difference between the cost in a teller-oriented transaction and the cost in an ATM-oriented transaction, and that benefit and the cost associated with it against the cost of deploying the solution. The good thing you get into a Financial Instant Issue solution is you have a solution that has an immediate revenue impact on your customer, something that I found refreshing when I got into this card-based business. And the first 2 bullets are the key bullets to think about in that space. One is the increase of activation rates. if you're talking to someone who has P&L responsibility or is involved in the card program, one of the key measures they're going to be graded on and key impacts on their ability to manage their organization is increasing activation rates. Obviously, this one makes perfect sense. When you're handing someone a card that's immediately active, your activation rate goes from whatever it is when you activate your card sent to you in the mail to nearly 100%. So that one is immediately impactful. But the real value is in the second bullet, which is increased card usage. There is significant revenue value, especially for smaller institutions who aren't burdened by the Durbin Act and its restriction on interchange, in the ability to drive revenue out of increased card usage, whether it's debit cards or certainly credit card portfolios. The impact, and we do have a model we can share at some point with you if you want to get involved with the sale of the product, is significant on the revenue side. But it's a nice thing to be able to talk to customers about revenue opportunities. And the goal is to gain top of wallet placement. I would say that that bullet is very, very important in a credit environment. I personally have 3 credit cards. Which one I pick every time I decide to go use a card is important to the provider of that card, the issuer of that card, because they're the one getting the fee revenue. Whereas to me, I have to have a reason for picking it, and personalized cards have proven that they give you a higher top of wallet placement. There are cost benefits, obviously. The last couple bullets: reduce of emergency and card replacement costs, reduce paper and mailing costs. Those things are costs that go into a business model too. But the nice part of this thing, again, is you've got a solution that actually has a cost justifiable revenue impact on the financial institution, and the bankers find that quite refreshing to talk through. So here's some statistics. We started out with this impact on a speculation of here's what would happen. We now have deployed over 1,000 institutions, and we've done business modeling at over 250 US-based institutions, where we have a good range of these types of things. And all of these factors build into some way or another the business model that we have. But you can see increased debit active rate, increased customer satisfaction, the transaction rate. The more telling slide is probably this one. This is the one that really has the financial impact on which your model is based. Debit active rate goes up in the left-hand side as you move to the middle. The transaction volume goes up. I will warn you, this is probably the one that you'll have the longest and hardest debate with your customers and getting them to believe, because we have found that the transaction dollar amount not only goes up when you first get the card, but that lasts for the life of the card. So a $3 to $7 increment per transaction is important in the model. And then you have the volume, which is the usage, the 20 to 30% incremental usage. So when you take the increased usage times the increased cost, or times the increased cost of the product they acquire, you find that you've got a significant business model impact. And those institutions that have instant issue open more accounts in the branch as you're tying opening that account to the immediate issuance of a card. Transaction increase again in that 5 to 15%, which gives you that $3 to $7. And we do have some more retail oriented. Any of you who have gone to a Cabela's, for example, that's our solution in Cabela's, where Cabela's does a really nice job of tying you in a first day purchase incentive with the issuance of the card in the Cabela's store. And that drives a much higher first day purchase dollar amount in the Cabela's store, for an example. So that's kind of the revenue side of this thing, very impactful to them. But why should you be involved in the sale and distribution of instant issue solutions? This is probably where most of you live. Digital transformation, things that are going on with technology, the opportunity to buy or build innovation and technology. All of these things tie very nicely into the story and capabilities that you're talking about already with your existing customers. We find that the story of how financial instant issue as it evolves ties very much into the story of ATMs and how ATMs evolved in the support structure and all of the different things. And the nice thing is there's a lot of green space. We would estimate there's probably 35 or 40% of the branches in the United States that have financial instant issue deployed. So in that other 65% of the time, you're talking to somebody who has not deployed a solution, so you're not fighting and scratching and clawing to replace a competitive solution in the marketplace. And it gives you another opportunity to talk to your customer about not only this solution, but the other solutions that you provide. So why Entrust Datacard? What makes us a little bit different from our other competitors who might be out there? I think one of the things I would tell you about our approach to this and how I would suggest that you get involved in selling it is that we sell flexibility. A lot of our competitors will sell a solution that's based on the technology that they have, which drives to an output. The output being the card. What is on the card? How is that card formatted? How is it provided? How does it start? We have a variety of solutions. I'm starting with hardware, not because our printer is 300 times faster or speeds or feeds, but because the various solutions we provide allow you to start anywhere from a blank card like you would see in the top left to a pre-printed card over on the right, and go anywhere from a flat card, if you've seen flat cards with flat print, to an embossed card, which is your typical credit card you may have received in the mail. So we are able to start our conversation with the customer of what, Mr. or Ms. Customer, do you want to put in the hands of your consumer? And then we can back into how we deliver that via the hardware and the software and the products that we provide. Nobody else in this industry, for example, has a well-recognized embossed solution. There's one that's significantly more expensive and much bigger and clunky, but it's not a well-known provider. They're more international based. So this flexibility is something I would suggest makes us and sets us apart. That's not just hardware. Even though I started with hardware, we've come up with a cloud-based solution which allows you to get the software provided as a service in this space. So we have competitors that have either cloud-based solution or competitors that offer in-house solutions. We do not have a current competitor that offers both cloud and in-house solutions that is a significant player here in the United States. So that's something we're pretty proud of. Our center, by the way, is the only center that we know of providing a not only PCI DSS, which you guys have all lived in your daily motions, but a higher level of security, PCI CP compliant, which is the same as the card providers that would provide them with their central issued cards. One additional point I would make is those central issued cards in the United States, I would suggest that 99% of those cards come off of Entrust Datacard equipment. So the providers that you may run into, the Fiservs, the FISs, all of those various providers, First Data, et cetera, all use our equipment on the back end to provide their central issue cards. So using our front end solution in a branch environment has a level of strategic sense to it to match the output from your central to instantly issued cards. Not to say that on-premise solutions don't exist. It is really a matter of customer choice. Back to the slide of flexibility, we offer on-premise solutions. In fact, we have the majority of our existing customers had been on-premise as we've just recently introduced a cloud-based solution. So it's a matter of build or buy. It's a matter of, do you want the control of your software and security? If you do, you want to have an on-premise solution. If you want it to be easy to install, low IT involvement, you probably want to look at a cloud-based solution. Later, our partners, Lansworth, will talk a little bit about pricing. I would only point out that we make that price decision agnostic. We price them the same. It's a subscription model that has the same kind of pricing, whether you're looking at on-premises or cloud. So we take the price part of the decision off the table and allow the customer to decide what's best for he or she. This slide is kind of the summary of that flexibility. It gets pretty filled up here. Sorry for that, but basically what it's showing is you have the ability to do on-premise or off-premise issuance. We have a management solution that those of you that are in the ATM space would most closely recognize when I say the word Gasper, similar to a Gasper capability, in that you can monitor supplies, you can monitor performance, availability, uptime, things of that nature. And obviously you can mix and match the various printer types that we would help you educate more about, whether they're the retransfer you see on the top, or this DTC, which would be a direct-to-card, which is another level down of card technology. I won't get into it this time. The thing we see that really helps differentiate us, that's really helped us in the space, is that we are a single solution provider. It is our hardware, it is our software, it is our data center, it is our or your services, depending on how you want to deliver those services into the market. But those services are certified by us. So we find we use the term a lot in this space, one throat to choke goes a long way. We're a domestic-based company in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we build and manufacture our equipment all there. Our support is based either in Minneapolis or Denver. So you get people that are here doing the support and care and feeding of the product. and all those things tied together. This is one piece that we really find there are providers out there that are now trying to acquire solutions to replicate. We have some customer or some competitors that were primarily software-based, some that provided hardware and sought a software partner, and those types of things. And obviously there's a supplies component that provides a revenue stream on this as well. The other thing I would tell you is we have a lot, much like what I would call interactive teller or whatever we want to call it, by which provider you may be associated with. We have a lot of different operating opportunities for how your branch customer would distribute solution. Pure instant issuance, that's the one we all want as salespeople. That's a solution where we put a printer in every single branch, and every branch supports the instant issuance of a card, and consumers can go in any space. But we do offer other solutions like distributed instance. In other words, you may have certain locations only that have that. Our software allows you to queue customer requests so that you can pull those requests from a central location and print those so they don't just print out somewhere. You don't want live cards sitting around, but you can certainly do hub and spoke deployments, much like I've known people to do in the ATM and ITM space. And we even have low volume branch issuance on the right-hand side. Think of that as there's a breach. I have 72 card holders that have breached accounts. If I wait for my central issue provider to send them their cards, it may be 4 weeks because they're worried about getting the big banks out of the way, and they won't get to that. So I can load a branch or batch file into that low volume branch instant issuance solution and get those cards out and mail them to their customers. So it's not instant, but it is delivered in a day or so instead of a 3, 4, whatever kind of a week time frame you would get out of your central issue provider. So there are a lot of strategies. Each one has its own business model and discussion. I would say as you get into bigger banks, the likelihood that you're going to get away with a customer or member-oriented benefit discussion, your sales model decreases, and the bigger banks want to hear more about business modeling, return on investment, and the like. We can support you with both of those scenarios. So the good news for all of you is this is kind of my summary slide. So why is there interest in financial instant issuance? Because there's consumer interest and value to the consumer being able to get a card and have that right now gratification of being able to go out and use the card and spend. The financial institution correspondingly has benefit from that modeling as well. That is both financial in terms of activation and usage rate, some cost benefits. And the most important for you might be, why would you be involved in reselling or distributing financial instant issuance? There's a lot of green space here. There are a lot of customers that haven't deployed yet. It's a great time to get a land grab and gain some additional customer capabilities. It's another solution, meaning it's another conversation you can have with your customers. And it obviously, even in your existing customers, offers you some incremental revenue opportunity where you have deployed other solutions, but you can add instant issue to it. Why Entrust Datacard? What makes us unique? Because we are the single solution provider. We let our customers choose how and what and when and why they want to deploy, and we have an on-premise or cloud-based solution model. These are all things that our competitors don't offer in this marketplace. So we think we're well positioned to add you differentiation, which at the end of the day needs to translate into value, revenue, and margin. And of course, the last thing is we have a world-class distribution relationship with our friends and colleagues at Vita Lansworth, and Lindsay and Tom Oden are here today to tell you how you can engage with Vita Lansworth to provide access to this solution in conjunction with Entrust Datacard. Tom?
Thank you, Jim. Lindsay and I are going to present the sales approach. See here. There's two ways to partner with Vita Lansworth. One is the business partner model, and the other one is the lead referral model. And we're going to talk about those in detail. Now, the first one is the model that most of you are familiar with, and it's a business partner model in which you are actually selling the product to your customers and your prospects. So in this model, we ask you to create the interest with the customer and to qualify the lead with Lansworth and Entrust Datacard. And that involves providing the financial institution name and location, and you could send that information directly to Lindsay, and Lindsay will work with Entrust Datacard to verify that lead. First of all, we want to see if it's a current Entrust Datacard user or if there's an active sales motion in the account. If it's yes to either one of those, then that is not a qualified lead. But if it is not a current user at Entrust Datacard and there's not an active sales motion, then Entrust Datacard will give us the green light to proceed, and it will become a qualified lead. So there's different ways that, there's two different ways you could qualify the lead. You could do it on an individual account basis on one lead, or you could provide a list of accounts. And just from experience, one of our partners gave us a list of a lot of their customers. There's 70 in this particular example, and we scrubbed the list. We shared it with Entrust Datacard. Entrust Datacard came back, and there was 10 users on a list, so 60 out of the 70 were qualified leads for our partners to pursue those. So once we qualify the lead, we need to present the value of the solution. And there's 6 qualifying questions that we can provide you that you could ask your customers or your prospect, and then, or we could do a discovery call where you have Lansworth on a line and we could ask those 6 qualifying questions with your customer. The reason we want to get that information is we want to provide the Entrust Datacard salesperson with as much information about the account, because they're going to present the WebEx to the customer, and every WebEx is customized. So they need to know if it's a Jack Henry account, if it's a Fiserv account, and the 6 qualifying questions will help them prepare for the WebEx. And just from experience, the salespeople are absolutely wonderful to deal with. They're well educated, and highly recommend getting them involved right from the beginning. And we'll ask you to introduce the customer on the WebEx to the Entrust Datacard salesperson, and Lindsay has been involved with these WebExes as well. So they will present the value of the solution, and they'll address any questions from your prospect or customer. No pricing will be talked about at that time. The next step is to submit a proposal, and we will provide the pricing to you, and there's a discount for software, hardware, and we're going to give an example of a couple configurations in the next couple slides. But the pricing is up to you on how you want to price it to your customer, and we understand that you need to have the certain amount of margins built in for your company. So that is up to you and how you present that to the end user. And then hopefully closing a sale, but both Lansworth and Entrust are available to address any objections or help you close the sale in any way possible. Just from experience, there's a lot of resources at Entrust Datacard and Lansworth to help you through the process, because this might be a new process for you. So I just want to reinforce that we have a lot of help in the entire selling process. So I'm going to ask Lindsay to present 2 different solutions here and configurations.
All right, so this is a 1-branch quote, and it is the cloud solution. So what I have here is I've broken it down to hardware, supplies, service, software, and then this quote is broken into 2 different parts. As you'll see for pricing, there is the hardware, supplies, and service are all one-time fees, and the software and support are broken down into monthly reoccurring fees. And I will bring you to the next.
Well, before you go there, Lindsay, just want to point out that with the cloud-based solution, in this particular example, it's $11,300 would be the one-time charge. So very reasonably priced for your customers, and the price point is excellent. And then the reoccurring charges would be monthly charges that we'd actually bill on an annual basis.
All right, and this one here is a 3-branch solution, and it's on-premise, so the software would be in your branches. It's not a cloud software. As you can see, the price jumps significantly, but same kind of layout. You're going to see the same thing from me either way, but like I said, the pricing is a lot higher, and if a lot of our partners are doing, 1-2 branch deals, that's where the cloud solution comes in super helpful as far as the pricing being reasonable.
All right, and then the other way you could partner with us is a lead referral, and it's pretty self-explanatory, but we do highlight it in the different columns here. If you feel that you're not ready to sell the solution and commit the resources to doing so, if you do have a lead, you could turn it over to Lansworth, and we would run with that lead from there, and we would take the lead with your customer or your prospect, and we would qualify that lead with Entrust Datacard. And then once that's approved, then we'd go through the selling motion of creating the interest, discovery call, the proposal, and close the sale. And then the last column indicates what's in it for you. And it's a lead referral fee of 8 to 10%, depending on the number of branches, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 plus. So some of these solutions, if you look at a 11 plus branch, it can be significant, well over, or it could go into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and at 10%, that's a pretty good lead referral fee. So you do have 2 options. One is to become a business partner of Vita Lansworth, and the second option is a lead referral fee. Just a clarification on the billing, it's going to work very similar to how most of you are doing business, where we will be invoicing you and you will be responsible for invoicing the financial institution. And as I mentioned earlier, there's 2 types of payments: a one-time payment for the hardware and software up front, and then the reoccurring payment, the monthly subscription fee. And instead of invoicing on a monthly basis, we'll just invoice that on an annual basis. So in the example given, it was $180. Times that by 12, we would invoice up front $2,160, so we don't have to invoice you monthly. And you would do that. These are either on a 3-year contract or a 5-year contract, so there would be 3 billings or 5 billings accordingly. And that concludes our presentation, but we'd like to address any questions at this time.
Okay, I do have a question about card stock. Do you provide the card stock for the solution?
Yeah, I can take that one, BJ. We don't. However, as a partner, maybe Lansworth or maybe the individual companies could provide card stock as an additional revenue. We don't, because I think I mentioned we work with all of those central issue providers. So the best I can describe it is we maintain a level of Switzerland in this thing. We have some level of staying out of that piece of it. It is something that some of them get from their central issue provider, and some of the solutions may require them to get that card stock to provide EMV data preparation. But for the most part, card stock can be made available from anyone. We just need to know, as part of what Tom and Lindsay work with you on, is what is that EMV data preparation, what kind of card, what kind of chip is that EMV chip, so that we can implement it into the solution.
All right. Do you have any marketing collateral that you can provide attendees with?
I'll take that one. Yes, we offer co-branded marketing collateral, and it's free value add for our partners, and that's to help in your sales process. So we can provide the marketing material, we could provide signage for shows. So yes, that is all available, and we can customize it according to our partners' needs.
All right. Someone has a trade show coming up. Can you do any support or help them promote this at a local show?
Absolutely. There's a couple different ways of handling this one. Like I mentioned before, the marketing material is available with the brochures and such, and we've attended a couple of shows, so we already have the signage created, but we can also customize that with your logos. And then we can also offer a demo unit, which we have in our office here, so that would require a Lansworth representative coming out. But we're willing to do that. We just need to plan well in advance, and we have the product here that we could ship ahead of time and coordinate it, and hopefully that would increase some traffic in the booth with having a product there. And there's different marketing ideas that we can do. We can customize the cards and put your company logo on the card. If you have a customer coming in that we know ahead of time, we can actually use their bank logo and give them an example of what some of the cards would look like. So we welcome those opportunities.
Yeah, and Thomas, Jim, I would say in addition, we do shows, right? We've spent a lot of time in the last fiscal year trying to increase our participation in those shows. A lot of them are technology providers. I mentioned we have interfaces. We have over 90 interfaces with core. When you think of core banking, that's where the cardholder information is. EFT switches, that's where the activation is. So all of your normal core and switch providers. In fact, I'm going next week down to an FIS show. So if you were thinking about that, check with us, and we'll make sure that we may already be participating in one of those shows and can, co-participate with you.
All right. Can you explain the hardware and software maintenance terms?
Yeah, Tom, why don't I take that one, because there's a couple options. I think what Lindsay has shown is the hardware. Let's start with hardware. The hardware maintenance piece being provided by Entrust Datacard. I would say there's two traditional types of hardware service. One that we call rapid replacement. So think of after support determines that a printer's broken. By the way, we resolve a lot of incidents over the telephone because somebody put supplies in wrong, cards backwards, or whatever. But assuming we need to replace a printer, we'll ship that printer under rapid replacement. We'll ship it out same day, assuming it's prior to our ability to ship to that location. It'll come in the box. The customer will unbox the printer. We'll put the new printer in, activate it, plug it in, do a couple things to get it running. They'll take the old printer and ship it back to the service department, and the transaction's kind of complete for that service incident. The other would be we've run into a lot of instances of ATM-like on-call service. So we have technicians that are distributed in many areas, but not everywhere in the United States. And those are the areas that mainly a lot of our potential partners want to hear about. We aggressively support partners doing service on that gear in the space. We only require that you're certified, take the training, do the testing, do the courseware to make sure you're providing the quality service you want. And there's a program that we can that we have shared before with some of the Lansworth partners, and we can share again. So I would say hopefully that gets that piece of it. The software maintenance is required. It's built into the subscription bundle, and it's part of that monthly annual amount that they pay in subscription, and provides that support which your technicians would have access to. So your customer would work with our support group along with your technicians to determine issues and fault if you're providing on-call support. Hopefully that gets to the edge of it. There's a lot more you can talk about with service provision.
All right. The next question is, how is core integration done? What local DP work is required for cloud-based solutions?
So I mentioned all of these cores. So we've got a variety of Fiserv, Jack Henry, FIS, core integrations that are libraried that we can deploy in a hosted or on-premise solution. All of that is tweaked and customized with the various components that are added in the installation, which We do have classes that could teach you to do. I would not suggest, as you being a business owner, that you do that unless you get an awful lot of volume, because it's hard to do. I would sell our deployment services because they're not that expensive, and then I would do service on the end user units. It's just my preference. But those things are created and they're implemented on a customer basis. Tom talked about each WebEx being customized. That's kind of part of that customization. What is that interface? Without getting too technical, there's two types. There is an embedded interface, which, as it sounds, is built into the teller application, and then there's our own application interface, which would use our what we call Financial Instant Issue software.
Okay. Who would you say are the competitors for Financial Instant Issue?
Yeah, I would say there's three. There's a conglomeration of very small people that you see very seldom, and then maybe I would call two or three others, and they're pretty distinct in where you see them. Fiserv has created their own instant issue solution they call Fiserv Instant Issue. It's based on a software solution called Trism. If those of you who are ATMs used to sell demo teller ATM demonstrators, Trism was owned by Demo Teller. They sold it off to a company called HID, who builds printers, pretty good sized company, who is trying to build that model of I've got printers, I've got software, I've got et cetera. But that's their main distribution is through Fiserv as the Fiserv Instant Issue solution. So if you're in a Fiserv bank, that's your big competition is Fiserv Instant Issue, which is Trism solution. Doesn't scale very well to larger sizes, does not have a hosted solution, so it is on-premise only. The other side of that is a solution you might hear about called Card at Once. Card at Once is owned by a company called CPI, which is a bureau. That bureau is struggling from a financial perspective, but Card at Once is their shining star. They've got a lot of customers on Card at Once. It is hosted only, the other side of that. And I would say 70% of the sales of Card at Once come through their relationship with Harlan Clark, who does checks. So if you have a customer that is a Harlan Clark customer, and you can usually tell by their website, how do you reorder checks? It's quite possible. They've talked to them about Card at Once and a hosted solution. Those two make up the vast majority of the competition. There is a third company called Gemalto Shoreline that sold our hosted solution until recently and has now decided to sell their own. It's called Dexis. We've yet to see them be very successful, but they are out actively selling that in the market. Those, I would say, are the 3 or 4 blends of competition you'll see in this space.
All right, I have one more question, and it is, I might have an opportunity, but how do I find if they are working with someone? How do I find that out?
We need to qualify that lead, and that would require sending the account information to Lindsay, and then she'd work with Entrust Datacard to qualify the prospect, and then we'd notify you if it's Entrust Datacard customer already, or if it's going to be a lead that we can pursue.
Yeah, Tom, let me add one thing on that, because I come from the old days, right? I was an old NCR guy. So when you said active sales motion, I wrote it down, because that for me meant anybody's ever talked to them in their life. Let me describe an Entrust Datacard what active sales motion really means, because I think it's impactful to you and it's important in your evaluation of whether you want to look at this or not. It means, as Tom said, the clear black and white one is it a user or not? If it's a user, we obviously are not looking for necessarily assistance. I don't want to write it off. There may be extenuating circumstances. We can have a discussion about what you could do if they're an existing customer. There may be add-ons, opportunities, kiosks, other things. However, what does active mean? To me, when I work with our sales organization, sales management, it means there is literally an active proposal that's in front of the customer for decision. It doesn't mean a salesperson, he or she talked to them 6 months ago and whatever. We've got to be very comfortable that there's business we're about to close for us to say it's not something we want to work with a partner on. Tom described and Lindsay described the model. It is a co-sell model with our sales organization. So having learned from prior issues, we compensate our sales organization for selling with a partner such as yourselves, just like we would if they sold direct. And the idea is they're there for a subject matter expert resource for you at your discretion. You could be comfortable eventually selling the whole solution without ever talking to the Entrust Datacard salesperson. And that's great, wonderful, but he or she is still going to be there. They're still going to have responsibility for that end user customer and any business that comes out of it. So why not leverage and utilize them, especially when you're learning the solution? Hopefully that makes sense. But I thought it was important. I wanted to take a minute to describe it. The model here is very pro-partner. It's very pro-supportive of working with our sales organization. And they view you and the opportunities and the customers you have exposure with as a very positive thing in their day-to-day world.
In addition, Jim, I just want to point out that Entrust Datacard has been absolutely wonderful to work with, and they understand channel conflict and they try to avoid it. And one thing that separates Entrust Datacard is that they don't put any limits like other vendors do, so it doesn't matter how large the opportunity is, that you aren't restricted at $3 billion or $500 million. If you have a very good customer that's interested, that is a prospect for you out there. And one last note I'd like to make is, I've talked to a couple business owners that are promoting this solution, and what they really like about this is the evergreen money. So it's the subscription fee is on an ongoing basis. And if you look at $180 and then you look at 10 of those, you look at 50 of those, if you sell into multiple customers and it adds up to 100, that is evergreen money that's coming in monthly, annually. And it fits in very well with the business model of a lot of our business partners because they like that service contract out there because of the evergreen money that's available. So I think that the subscription base is definitely a benefit. And once again, I mentioned before, the price point is very attractive, especially with the host-based solution.
Yeah, and Tom, a little bit more, I didn't say on the service modeling thing, if you want to sell our services up front and you determine that you've created a big enough density to create your own service organization in an area to support end devices, that's great. We support that model. It's not all or nothing. You don't have to start with us, end with us. We're very supportive of service the way you want to provide it, when you're able to provide it, how you're able to provide it. So to Tom's point, that supports that evergreen model as well. You don't have to take the huge upfront investment. It's just because you want to do service. You can wait until it makes financial sense for your business and then transition to that model.
Okay, that seems to be the end of the questions. So again, I'd like to thank Jim and Tom and Lindsay for spending the time to put together this webinar, and thank you to the attendees for spending your time with us today. If you have any topics you'd like to see covered on future webinars, just drop me an email. That's bj@fspa1.com. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, BJ.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, BJ. Thanks, Tom and Lindsay.
Thank you.